A young woman was typing simultaneously on two computers. Shockingly, a pair of handcuffs could be seen on her wrists. This scene is from the notorious KK Park, a telecommunications fraud zone in Myawaddy, Myanmar. It's said that very few people who are deceived into coming here ever leave alive. A brave netizen shared drone footage of KK Park, risking their life to document it.
I want you all to remember this shelter. It's actually an armed post, and the people inside were watching me. At the time, I was figuring out where to launch the drone. Doing it by the roadside was too dangerous, especially with that terrifying guard post nearby. Right now, I'm on the Thai side, only about 20 meters from the river. Across from me is KK Park. I can't even speak loudly here. Earlier, I noticed a few people at the guard post who looked like Chinese. They didn't look Thai at all. Take a close look at this vehicle. At first, I didn't realize it was part of a mobile floating bridge. A pickup truck was transported across just like that. I passed by the entrance of this compound earlier and nearly thought of flying the drone there. It felt like something out of a movie. Even while editing the footage, I got chills down my spine. This place is a transit hub. Did you see that vehicle crossing the border so easily?
The drone footage shows guard posts surrounding the park, high walls over 5 meters tall, topped with barbed wire, and a complex of dozens of buildings. Some resemble office blocks, while others seem to be dormitories. Inside the park, some people were running around without shirts, likely being punished. Armed guards were stationed throughout the compound, inside and out. Today's story revolves around Wang Xing, a promising young actor from mainland China. In the early hours of January 3rd, Wang took a direct flight from Shanghai Pudong Airport to Bangkok, Thailand. From there, he boarded a car arranged by a casting coordinator. By midday, he went missing near the Thailand-Myanmar border. On January 5th, Wang's girlfriend posted an urgent plea on social media. She revealed that Wang had received a casting notice in an actor's job group, adding the casting director on WeChat, and passed an audition before deciding to travel to Thailand for the role. Under intense public scrutiny, Wang was rescued on the evening of January 7th. He later revealed that he had been tricked into going to Thailand under the guise of work. Upon arrival, his head was shaved, and he was forced into a building with 50 other Chinese nationals to practice typing, suspected to be training for telecommunications fraud. According to preliminary reports from Thai police, after Wang arrived at the Mae Sot border, someone took him by boat across to Myanmar. Wang said he had only realized he'd been deceived once he crossed the border, but he didn't dare to resist. On January 7th, at around 3 or 4 p.m., Wang was handed over from Myanmar to Thailand. By the morning of January 8th, he had flown back to Bangkok. After being rescued, Wang Xing revealed that he had been deceived by a fake Thai entertainment company. The scammers used Thailand as a transit point, claiming he would travel to a third country to film. Mainland actress Xiao Yifan disclosed that Wang Xing wasn't a celebrity, but a struggling grassroots actor. He was tricked because he was desperate for work and short on money. Xiao Yifan also mentioned that in December, before Wang Xing went missing, a group of actors had been similarly deceived. They grew suspicious and managed to return on their own. She added that the casting coordinator who tricked Wang claimed his WeChat account had been hacked a month prior and denied involvement. According to reports, Thai police estimate that around 70,000 Chinese nationals are trafficked from Thailand to Myawaddy, Myanmar every year, an average of 200 people daily. This makes it the second largest human trafficking hub in Southeast Asia. Following Wang Xing's case, public attention has shifted to another missing Chinese national, model Yang Zeqi. Reports indicate that Yang has been located and is trapped in the Hengsheng compound in Myawaddy. Thai police are coordinating his rescue. The 25-year-old had gone missing over 20 days ago near the Thailand-Myanmar border. According to his family, Yang's situation mirrors Wang Xing's. Both were lured with offers to act in Thailand and then disappeared. On X, a user named Luo shared horrifying information provided by an insider at KK Park. The compound is involved in activities such as fraud, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. Victims are coerced into illegal activities, and once controlled, escaping becomes nearly impossible. Here's how victims are reportedly treated based on gender, appearance, and compliance. For women, women who are attractive and compliant are coerced into exploitative activities and subjected to manipulation, often involving substance abuse, which severely impacts their physical and mental well-being. Women who are attractive but non-compliant face harsh treatment, including forced addiction and exploitative labor. Those who resist may endure severe consequences. Women who are unattractive but compliant are subjected to exploitation in various forms within the group. Women who are unattractive and non-compliant are often treated as warnings to others, facing harsh punishments to enforce compliance within the group. For men, attractive men may be subjected to exploitation and coerced into roles that significantly alter their personal identity. Returning to their previous lives becomes extremely difficult. Unattractive men who are fluent in Mandarin and proficient with computers are often forced into fraudulent activities. Those with technical skills but less fluency are assigned to operate illegal online gambling platforms, and those lacking specific skills are relegated to strenuous manual labor or other high-risk tasks. From the outset, male victims endure violent treatment to establish control. While a few ruthless individuals may rise to minor leadership roles, most serve as expendable tools. Under international scrutiny, these minor leaders are often scapegoated to appease public outcry. KK Park isn't the only fraudulent compound in Thailand. Here's another example. On June 9, 2023, Fei, a fruit wholesaler from Quanzhou, Fujian, received a call from a long-lost acquaintance. This person, whom he had shared a meal with years ago, first inquired about Fei's business. He then mentioned a great deal on mangoes in Guangxi and asked if Fei was interested in checking it out. Enthusiastically, the caller even booked Fei's flight and assured him that someone would pick him up upon arrival. The day after arriving, Fei was taken to a local farm to inspect mangoes. He found the quality poor and suspected he may have been tricked. However, the person who brought him encouraged him to stay and explore more, promising better mangoes deeper in the mountains. One morning, his contact insisted on taking him to see mangoes again. When they approached the mountains, Fei noticed 4 or 5 men on motorcycles waiting. As he approached, he realized they spoke a language he didn't understand. These men carried knives and gestured for him to get on their vehicles, seizing his phone in the process. At that moment, Fei realized that he may have crossed the border. He was transferred from the motorcycles to a car and driven overnight. The journey spanned 4.5 days, crossing through Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. During this time, he attempted to escape twice, but was caught both times. On June 24, 2023, Fei was taken to the Thailand-Myanmar border, where he was forced at gunpoint onto a boat. After disembarking, he was put into a car, driven to a fraud compound called Dongfeng, and then transferred to another vehicle to ascend a mountain. The route was lined with over 10 armed checkpoints. Eventually, he reached his final destination, the Yutai compound, run by the same acquaintance who had tricked him with the mango story. That night, he was locked into a small dark room. Fei recalled, "They hung me by my hands, with only my toes touching the ground. They smeared sugar on my feet so that ants and bugs would bite me. They would ask several times a day if I was willing to work. If I refused, I'd get beaten." After being confined for over 10 days, Fei asked to meet the boss, only to discover it was the acquaintance who had deceived him. The actor Wang Xing's safe return from the Myawaddy fraud compound has given hope to other victims' families, who have since turned to online platforms for help. On January 7th, a member of a support group for families of victims trapped in Myanmar's fraud compounds compiled over 100 accounts into an online document called Starlight Return Plan. The document, which was made public, invited families of the deceived to share their details. The response was overwhelming. By January 11th, the document had collected over 1,100 entries. That same night, authorities blocked access to the file. The organizers moved it to Google Docs, continuing their efforts. As of January 14th, the document had reached 1,359 entries. In the Reason for Filing section, most entries stated either no case filed or police refused to file. Alongside the document, many families and even some trapped victims have continued posting online for help, but there has been no clear response from the Chinese Communist Party. A woman from Guizhou, using the pseudonym Ye, shared her plight. "My brother was in Myanmar and has now moved to Cambodia. Occasionally, he can contact us, but he isn't allowed to leave. He desperately wants to come home, but they won't let him. Life there is inhumane. Our elderly parents cry every day and can't eat or sleep well." On January 2, 2025, around 9:30 a.m., a group of families of victims sought help from the Yunnan Provincial Public Security Bureau. The request was denied, and they were forcibly removed and taken away by police. When Xing's girlfriend first reported it, police refused to accept it because she wasn't a relative. Then his brother reported it, but they said it couldn't be handled because he wasn't in the country. When they contacted the embassy, the response was to report it in Thailand. Left with no options, they went public online. After a few celebrities reposted the story and it gained traction, the police filed the case, and the embassy started following up. Ridiculous, isn't it? Ordinary people can't even dream of such treatment. An anti-fraud blogger, speaking anonymously, pointed out that Wang Xing's swift rescue was due to celebrity support and public pressure. This highlights that authorities can act quickly when they choose to, but often prioritize profits over people's lives. The Wang Xing case has also sparked heated discussions on international platforms like X. A netizen revealed the largest gang in Beijing is tied to the Fujian faction. Over half of the leaders of fraud syndicates come from Putian and Quanzhou, with Anxi County in Quanzhou being a major hub. By 2017, many of these fraud bosses had already established connections with local police. In 2018, when non-Fujian police from other provinces began cracking down on romance scams and online gambling, the fraud bosses realized that Fujian authorities couldn't fend off the external pressure. Through intermediaries with ties to Fujian leadership, they built connections with Beijing's higher-ups. Using influence and financial incentives, they neutralized the efforts of outside law enforcement. This led to a pattern. Victims were coerced into accepting seven-figure compensation. Beijing intermediaries pocketed eight-figure bribes, and local police gained promotions. Meanwhile, fraud bosses resumed their operations. If even an outsider has heard these stories, it's hard to believe insiders in the system haven't. That's why many cases never get filed. They don't want to disrupt the lucrative system benefiting those at the top. Another user commented, a significant number of domestic gang members moved to Cambodia and northern Myanmar when casino business dried up. They eventually partnered with the Fujian gang to run telecom scams. The largest bosses in Southeast Asian scams are from Fujian, with over 80% coming from Anxi. The Xiamen real estate market was largely inflated by money from these fraud operations. Now, most leaders have relocated to Singapore or Dubai, shifting their operations while maintaining deep ties with the Chinese government. A netizen pointed out, this explains a long-standing question. Why do banks often freeze transfers from ordinary people to family or friends suspecting fraud, while large-scale scam funds move freely? Why can they track small sums of a few thousand yuan but lose track of millions or even billions? Are banks helping customers or aiding scammers? What's even stranger is that all calls and online communications are monitored by national security agencies. Why can't they trace or block scam calls? Another revealed, Myanmar's entire telecom and banking systems are operated by China. If the CCP truly wanted to combat telecom fraud, it could cut off communications and freeze accounts instantly without needing extensive operations. Recently, an official from the International Criminal Court stated that there are reasonable grounds to believe Myanmar's senior general and acting prime minister, Min Aung Hlaing, also commander-in-chief of the Tatmadaw, is criminally responsible for crimes against humanity involving the expulsion and persecution of the Rohingya population in parts of Myanmar and Bangladesh. This marks the first arrest warrant application targeting high-ranking officials of the Myanmar government. In response, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a strong objection. Reportedly, Chinese President Xi Jinping directed the ministry to lodge the most vehement protests against this action. One netizen offered a sharp analysis of the situation. The deep entanglement of organized crime, governmental inaction, and international diplomacy reveals how profit-driven motives override justice. The suppression of victims and their families only underscores the systemic corruption enabling these atrocities.
The situation behind KK Park runs far deeper than most people imagine. The fragmented state of Myanmar plays directly into the hands of certain powers. A unified Myanmar would be far less controllable, while a divided and conflict-ridden Myanmar becomes dependent on external forces, making it easier to manipulate. Even those who don't fully cooperate can be dealt with when pushed to the brink. At that point, extending a helping hand ensures compliance. Years ago, the Kaokang army fled to Yunnan province in China. The boss, CCP, supplied them with equipment, allowed recruitment, and even permitted them to cultivate banned crops to sustain themselves. However, the support was limited, never enough to let them grow too powerful. This is why during recent conflicts, the Kokang Alliance Army stopped advancing and maintained the fragmented state of local warlords. This fragmentation leads to a fundamental issue: funding. Supporting so many people and equipping them for warfare requires money. In such a desolate region, where can such a large sum come from? The answer is a black market economy. With no stable business environment, legitimate economic activities are unviable, so they resort to illicit industries. Previously, it was cultivating banned crops. Now, it's telecom fraud. Even if all current fraud operations were eliminated, new forms of illicit activities would replace them. The telecom fraud bosses being arrested are just pawns, disposable white gloves. The cycle of exploitation persists because these outlaws are never entirely eradicated. As long as Myanmar's political and economic structure remains unchanged, such activities will continue indefinitely. When public outrage peaks, a few scapegoats are sacrificed to diffuse anger. The system remains untouched. The real financial flow in this region reveals a troubling cycle. Chinese citizens are defrauded. The money flows to fraud syndicates. The syndicates pay the warlords, and the warlords buy weapons from the boss, perpetuating mutual harm.
Everyone along this chain profits immensely. Thus, any so-called crackdown is merely swatting flies without addressing the root cause. This analysis intriguingly parallels Xi Jinping's so-called anti-corruption campaign over the past decade. More on this topic in the next episode. Stay tuned.